Welcome to Healing Our Relationships, the podcast. I'm Marisa, healer, transformation guide, and someone who has spent the last 17 years coming home to herself. This podcast was born from a powerful circle I lead each month, where women gather live on Zoom to unearth their codependent patterns, reclaim their truth, and return home to themselves. Here, I bring these same teachings and transmissions to you. Each episode, I'll help you understand what codependency actually is, not in a clinical or shame-based way, but through the lens of spiritual healing and personal empowerment. We'll explore the real impact these patterns have on your nervous system, your relationships, your sense of self, and your spirit. I'll offer grounded tools, guided inquiries, perception shifts, and an invitation to heal in community, not just alone. This is a space for deep truth-telling, for remembering who you are beneath the stories and the shape-shifting, and for walking each other home. You don't have to do this perfectly, you just have to begin. So let's get started. Today I want to talk about the journey from disconnection to true self-worth, to coming into a place of real compassion, reverence, understanding, patience, and love for ourselves. And I think this is really important because it can be very challenging to even make the tiny changes and suggestions that I have put in each episode when we don't feel worthy of love. And I'm really talking about worthy of love from ourselves, that we see and perceive ourselves as unworthy because when we see ourselves, what we see is our story. What we see is all the ways that we have, quote unquote, failed, let ourselves down, chose wrong. And it's really easy to come into this place with a lot of self-blame, a lot of frustration for ourselves. And it's not as simple as just going, oh, well, that's who I was. I'm somebody different now. It's just not a quick journey from that to where it is I'm trying to help you go. When you've spent years, maybe decades, living in survival mode or performing, managing everyone else, shape-shifting or numbing out, it would make a lot of sense that this would take a while, right? And so I'm always going to remind you to listen to these episodes from a place of compassionate curiosity and see yourself through the lens, if only for this 30 minutes, because that is really how you begin the process of practicing coming into a place of compassion. And my hope is when you're hearing me speak and share that you understand that this is like a universal and collective experience, that you are absolutely not alone in your story. You're not alone in the things that you've done or the things that you've said or the people that you've hurt or the bad choices that you've made. We all have made really painful choices in our lives, many of us. I think what happens is there's only so many that will admit it. There's only so many that will talk about it. There's only so many that will share that with someone else because we're constantly hiding our shadow. We have all these skeletons in our closet because we feel guilt, because we feel shame, and that's where we want to keep them. And so it's one thing to even get honest with ourselves and allow ourselves to open that door and meet those skeletons, to sit with our shadows. It's a whole other thing to share it with someone else. And so you might be on that part of the journey where you're really just coming into a place of awareness of how you have self-abandoned or how you have shapeshift or how you have spent your whole life disconnected from any true essence. And we talked about how this is created in the episodes where we talk about our story and beliefs and agreements and domestication. And I'm very excited because we're going to have Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. on the podcast to really dive in to that. What they teach and what we're capable of is coming into a place of awareness that we are more than the pain that we lived. We are more than the roles that we have chosen. We are more than the labels that we've carried. And we are far more than the beliefs that we've inherited about who we are. But when you're in the thick of it, your sense of self really can feel like it's being boiled down to what's wrong with you. And sometimes when we do healing work, transformation work, therapy, and you're unearthing all this stuff, it can feel like that is all that is true and that is all that exists. And by the end of this episode, my hope is I'm going to help give you something to ground into so you can hold both things. So you don't get taken away in the process of unearthing, of self-facing, of coming into a place of radical self-honesty. And I really just want to put in here how courageous and scary it can be. And if there's anything I want you to know to be true about yourself, is that you are willing. You have the courage to be willing. And that is huge, absolutely huge. This type of work is not easy. And I just really want to affirm that for you. And I would like you to take a moment to actually take a breath and receive it and allow yourself to receive and not deflect. Because there is a part of you that absolutely does believe it's true, and it's the part of you that's fighting for you right now. So I want to take us back a little bit as a reminder of what contributes to struggling with self-worth. It's part of your story, whether it's family of origin, living in environments where love was conditional, where approval had to be earned, where your needs were ignored. It could also be for those of you that really felt you had a lot of responsibility. And so you had to be on all the time. You had to be in control. You had to perform. That maybe other people around you weren't able to step it up in the way you were. And so you had to become the one. And as we engage in behaviors that are contradictory to our authenticity, and I'm not talking about authenticity just in the sense of like, who's my personality and who am I? I'm talking about the authenticity of our nervous system and how it's continuously adapted over and over to keep you safe. And most of the time, all of this boils down to controlling patterns. And control patterns are really woven into every single one of the other patterns because you are trying to control the situation, the environment, the other person, or yourself by engaging in a behavior. And your nervous system has adapted to that. And it's so wild because, and this is just from self-experience, right? You know, I'm not a doctor or a therapist or psychologist. This is my own self-experience in connection to my own energy body and my nervous system. But what I think is so crazy is that we really have the power to train our nervous system. We have the power to react in a very specific way to stress, rejection, conflict, criticism, as if it were a life or death threat. So even though these moments aren't physically dangerous, and that is what the nervous system was designed, was to protect us, the body responds with the same fight, flight, or freeze patterns. We can even throw fawn in there. But really, the fight, flight, or freeze, that anxious, high alert, I'm in danger, when we're really in a safe situation. And I want to share with you that this goes so deep, which is why I always encourage people to really explore this work inside of therapy, because some of this runs so deep that even after years of doing this work and so many moments in my day where I get to choose, I literally can feel that fight or flight coming, and I even have this ability to ground and say, no, we're safe, it's fine. I still will get a moment where somebody will send me an email or send me a text, or they'll have had an experience with me, or I'll feel misunderstood, and my body goes into complete fight or flight. It's not in my head anymore, which is great. I'm fully aware. My body's in fight or flight because I have first thought, second thought, because I have tools, because I have awareness. I'm able to make more room and breathe through it and try to stay out of the story. We're going to talk about that today. But the reality is my body still does it, and it can be very frustrating. It can be very frustrating. So just know this is not going to go away right away. But what's interesting is that when that happens for me, it's this reminder there is some healing left to do here around this. And I personally think because it's nervous system related that I like to shift more into somatic practices to heal that. Because I've healed the story. I believe that I'm worthy. I believe that I'm lovable. I don't believe I need to be perfect. I know I make mistakes. It's okay if somebody rejects me. It's okay if someone says no. It's okay if someone has a bad experience with me if I wasn't intending to hurt. They are allowed to have their experience. They are allowed to reject me. They are allowed to be frustrated with me. I know that consciously now. I don't live in old stories where I'm constantly trying to play for other people. I don't. But my body has not caught up to my mind yet. And so the unlearning that we do in the mind is actually, I believe, easier than the unlearning and returning to authenticity in the body. Which for me, authenticity with my nervous system is that, if I'm in danger, if a car comes out of nowhere and I'm walking down the street and I go into fight or flight and jump back, I want that. I don't want to get rid of that. But if somebody's misunderstanding me or seeing me in a critical eye, I don't want to have that experience where I need to jump out. So really, there are so many layers to this, and that's why I always invite compassion, because what you're doing is you're creating a better understanding of the difference between your ego mind, your soul, your spirit, the energy that moves you, and your nervous system. So we have all of these pieces that are out of whack, that are supposed to be working together, but they've been trained now through trauma, pain, and fear. So there is a big shift here that needs to happen in the mind, in the body, and in the spirit. If the mind is, what is wrong with me? How could I have done that? What's my problem? I can't believe I abandoned myself. I'm so stupid. What an idiot. If the mind is constantly judging and criticizing, that is not the authentic self. That is learned behavior. And there's many different episodes where I speak to this. So you should have a sense of this. The question that you're asking yourself needs to change. We don't want to bypass and pretend that you're not having that feeling. But the truth is that what's wrong with me is such a broad and general negative, aggressive statement. It is not a statement of curiosity. And if you're on this journey, you're getting curious, you're trying to better understand yourself, and you want to heal. So what's wrong with me, or what's my problem? And self-abuse is not going to get you any closer. And I know that for some, for me, absolutely for sure, that self-abuse felt real. I didn't feel in control over the voice. And this is where you really have to get courageous. And one of the tools that I used, and one of the tools that I share with my clients, is I ask them to shift the negative, judgmental voice into a place of curiosity. And when you are spiraling, the question that I love to ask myself the most is, what do I know about myself to be absolutely true that I can ground into in this moment? What do I know about myself to be absolutely true? As all of these thoughts of self-hate, self-criticism, anxiety, anger, and fear are swirling through me. This question came to me in the midst of my own spiral, where the voices were so loud and so painful, where I was physically crying and curled up in a ball. And I heard this voice that I believe is my higher self, maybe spirit. I'm a spiritual person. And I heard this voice that said, Marisa, what is one thing you know about yourself to be true right now? And the thing that I initially thought of was actually like a feeling in my body. And it was that I really loved people. I really loved my family. And I remember kind of seeing flashes of like my brother and my mom and my dad, my other brother and my cousins. The first thing I thought of was that I am loving. Have I always acted loving? Absolutely not. But I knew at my core that something I knew about myself to be true was that I loved love. And what was cool is the flashes that came through my mind were not codependency love. It wasn't about being loved. I actually felt in my body that I love to love people. And it was one thing that I knew about myself to be true. When I explore this with my clients, I typically do it in meditation. So we're using the heart center and we're using parts of self. So you can actually sometimes we'll go into a journey and I'll say, see if you can see an age or a part of you that remembers what it was like before it had all this pressure, before it was required to perform, before it had to shapeshift to be safe. And that part, maybe a 7-year-old comes walking into the field and you get to see what they're wearing and what they look like and what they're doing. And maybe they're dancing around or playing in the sand or jumping in the ocean. And there's this freedom and there's this authenticity. And there's this feeling of, gosh, what I know to absolutely be true is that I love to play. What I know to be absolutely true is that I'm creative. What I know to be absolutely true is I love to bring people together. What I know to be absolutely true is that I'm funny. And you remember this piece of you. You remember this part of you. And it's really easy for you to judge those things that you consider small or not enough. That's part of the problem, is that we've been conditioned to believe that there should be this overarching truth about who we are. I am a great daughter. I am an amazing partner. I am a successful entrepreneur. Like these huge macro things that are asking us to find a place in our life where we feel like we've done something perfectly. And guess what? There is no place in our life where we have done anything perfectly. In every role that we have experienced fear. In every role that we have, we've experienced not enoughness. In every role that we've had, we've experienced making the wrong choice. In every role that we have, we've experienced self-abandonment. So from a place of love, I would say good luck finding a role where you feel you have been in your truth the entire time, because unfortunately, for all of us, we have been conditioned to look for our flaws, to try to change for other people, and to seek perfection. And guess what? You're interrupting that pattern right now. You are going back and remembering your truth. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. You are energy. It doesn't matter if you believe in God or if you're an atheist. This is not what I'm talking about. You are a divine, cosmic creation. Think about even how you got here. The journey that you've been on since you were this tiny little piece of life in somebody else's body. What I know to be true for myself in you is that I am far more than my story. What I know to be absolutely true about myself is that I don't have to suffer. What I know to be absolutely true is that I refuse to be on my deathbed, looking back at my life, the one life I had as Marisa, and see myself living in fear. I would love to invite you to ground, to think with your heart, what do I know about myself to be absolutely true? So when those voices come in and you start spiraling in story because you're activated in your body, that you can come back to a truth. It's not a fake it till you make it. It's not an affirmation. I'm asking you to come back to your truth. We are on a mission to retrain our nervous system so that safety becomes the baseline and vigilance is not the baseline. And a book I really want to invite you all to read. It absolutely changed my life. It helped me heal my nervous system. The author is Dr. David Hawkins, and he wrote this book, Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender. And what he explains is that our perception of reality is filtered through the unresolved emotions that we're holding on to. We need to learn how to release emotions without fearing that we won't be in control. Because what happens is when we're having anxiety, we're having panic, we're having fear, we usually tighten ourselves up. We want to calm ourselves down. We are afraid of losing control. We're afraid of losing our minds. We are afraid of not being able to come back. When really we should be practicing like the animal in the woods who gets scared and they run off and they shake. They allow that fear to metabolize and then they move on. Dr. David Hawkins says this is what surrender is. Surrender is coming into the body, it's coming into the feeling, and it's making more room for it. He asks us to have the courage to get out of the story. When I was in my relationship where I was in complete codependency, every single morning I would wake up and I would get in the shower. I was in fight or flight in my chest, and my mind was ruminating about, should I stay in this relationship? Should I leave? Why did he say this? What's going on here? What's going on there? My body was so activated from his behavior, my own beliefs, fear of abandonment, whatever. And I would stand in the shower every morning. I would call it comatose showering. For 5 minutes, I hadn't even moved and the water was just running on me. After I read David's book, every morning I would practice this because I knew I was going to have anxiety every morning. I'd go into the shower, I'd start to hear the story, and I'd start to feel in my body. And here are the steps I would take. 1, find the feeling in the body. Where's the feeling? It's in my chest. And then just imagine the brain trying to get my attention. Marisa, your partner doesn't love you. Where's the feeling? The feeling's in my chest. What does it feel like? It feels tight. What does it look like? Grains of black sand vibrating super hard. Step 2, make more room for it. What do you mean make more room? I don't want to make more room. That's scary. Isn't it going to overtake me? No, he says, make more room for it. So I breathe and I take these big, deep breaths and I visualize this vibrating black sand in the center of my chest getting more space. I visualize almost as if my body is expanding so this black vibration can be there. And because I'm making more room, I'm using my breath. So I'm breathing and I'm making more room. Breathing and making more room. And then what's happened at this point is my brain is actually focused on that. It's not telling myself a story. The story keeps the feeling going. The story is what doesn't allow us to metabolize. But if I can have the courage to trust David, because that's really what it was coming down to, is he asked me to have the courage to do the practice. And I said, I am going to try this. I am committed. I am committed no matter how scared I am, how much my mind wants me to ruminate, no matter how much my mind wants me to protect myself with hypervigilance, I am going to do the David practice. And I just sat there and made more room, breathed, made more room. And then throughout the day, when my mind wanted to go in the story, I went immediately to that image of that black sand in my body, and I breathed and I made more room. And time again, after about, I don't know, maybe like 20 or 30 times, I'm not joking, I did this with absolute commitment because I was so tired of being pain and I just wanted to try something different. And after about 30 times, it felt safer and safer and safer to let go of the story in my head. Because here's the other mantra I had from Don Miguel Ruiz, is that why are you talking to yourself, Marisa, if you're the only one that's listening? You already know what you're going to say. You already know the debate. You already know the judgment. You already know the criticism. You don't need to go through the story. So I had these two men in my head telling me, you already know what you feel and what you think. So please just stay with your body and breathe and allow this fear to go through you, because the fear, the fight or flight, the feeling like you're absolutely going to die, you're not going to die if you stay in your relationship 3 months too long. At least for me, I wasn't. There's some relationships that are very abusive, and I would ask you to check in on that statement. But for me, this fight or flight, what was happening in my body, was not in relation to what was happening in the moment. And that's what I realized, is that my trauma responses were not my present responses. And this is why surrender, in David's definition, is surrendering to the feeling and allowing the fear to metabolize in the body. And the more we release, the more space we create for truth and compassion and peace. The less we're living in hypervigilance inside of our story, the more we're able to be present. And that's what happened. And I tell you today, of all the things I've done, and I've done a lot of things, that book and that practice is a bookmark that changed my life. It has taught me how to be with fear. As somebody who struggled with panic attacks and anxiety, when fear comes, I make more room and I stay out of the story. So I want to invite you to get that book, and I want to invite you to practice. The other thing I would ask you to look at is, what stories are you clinging to about yourself that are begging for self-forgiveness, that are begging for compassion? When it comes to a relationship to self and truly loving and feeling a love for ourselves, please remember, this is not about excusing ourselves from our behavior or telling ourselves we didn't do anything wrong. And sometimes I think that we unconsciously or consciously refuse to be in love with ourselves because we are blaming ourselves for our wrongs. When true love especially if you're a parent and you understand this. True unconditional love means I love all of you, your light and your shadow. It means I accept you and the painful things you did. It means understanding why those painful things might have played out. And it doesn't mean checking a box, I forgive myself. It is living in forgiveness. It is living in forgiveness. And how we do that is through these practices, through compassion, through patience, through sitting with ourselves, through having the courage to say, man, I am so angry. And instead of just ruminating on all the things that I'm angry about, I am going to go into my body. I'm going to figure out where that anger is, and I'm going to let it metabolize. Because every time I try to talk myself out of my anger, I'm not experiencing it. And especially when it comes to anger, if you're afraid of losing control, I would really invite you into a safe space of anger. So there are like those rooms, those like destroy rooms that you can go in and you can throw things around and break things, where you can like really explode. And of course, again, this is always a disclaimer. I'm not giving you medical or therapeutical advice. You need to figure out what is safe for you. What I offer you here is a shift of perception, curiosity to ask yourself questions, and if these practices and processes would help and serve you. And if you are living with a feeling that you are too afraid to release, then I would invite you to explore with a therapist or a healing practitioner or a friend or a counselor or a pastor or whoever, a healthy way to release your anger. I personally like to do it on the breathwork floor. I personally like to find a safe container where I can scream and cry and hit a pillow and yell at the top of my lungs, and sometimes yell so much that I throw up, because that stuff is so deeply rooted in the back of my chest and my heart and my belly. Where are you holding on? Where are you holding on? What are you trying to figure out? And can, alongside with that, because that's an important part of the process, alongside with that, can you also find a way to surrender to it? Can you find a way to be with it? Can you find a way to express it? Self-love, self-worth is not just a point that you get to start with right now. It is the result of choosing truth over fear over and over and over again. What is my truth? There are absolute truths about you. And some of your truths, let me just say this too, stop just looking for the ones that feel good. Because part of self-acceptance is also honoring the truths that don't feel good. One absolute truth has led to hundreds of absolute truths inside of the practice of choosing love over fear over and over and over. And love does not mean perfection. Again, love does not mean bypass. Love means making room for yourself. In the same way that you will make room for these feelings, you are making room for yourself in the world. You are saying, I am worthy to be here as I am in this moment. Please be patient with yourself. Please remember that every act of letting go and a surrender, every act of being with yourself is returning to who you've always been. You are a vessel that can move the world. Your energy is a force. All that you are capable of. Please believe that you are worthy of moving your body in this world in a way that allows for creation and beauty. And please allow yourself to know that you do not have to do it perfectly. I love you, I'm proud of you, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you for being here with me. If something in this episode landed, if it stirred something in your heart or helped you feel less alone, please give me a rate and review and share with a friend. You can always learn more about me and what I offer at healwithalchemy.com. And if you're longing for community, for live connection, and real conversation, I host a free Healing Our Relationships circle on the last Thursday of the month on Zoom. You can join us by downloading my app, HealSpace. It's free, and the circle lives right there in the app, along with my meditations, offerings, and a space to be seen. If you're ready to go deeper, I'll be guiding Awakening Woman, my next in-person retreat in Sedona this November. A weekend of breathwork, healing, ritual, sisterhood. It's a powerful space for transformation, and there are a few spots left. My next Mystery School cohort opens this October. It's a sacred container for women walking a spiritual path. We work with archetypes, shadow, and the divine feminine, and it's a full journey around the sun. 12 months, 6 women. You'll find all the details for retreat, mystery school, and so much more at healwithalchemy.com. Come find the space that speaks to you in your season. I'm so grateful to be here with you, and I'll see you soon.